All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Hiko Hirorin, the member of the HITCON Review Board. And I'm very pleased that we are very honored to have the Mr. Adachi-san from Japan/US, maybe, yes. He's very famous veteran global incident responders. And he's going to share something very practical insight for the resilience 2.0 or 2 point something, 2.x, yes. So please give him the big applause. And nice. And stage is yours.
Thank you very much.
Or maybe you can.
1, 2, 3, undo try, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I hope everybody can hear me all right. I hope. First of all, thank you very much for joining me today. 大家好. Thank you. Good afternoon. I need more practice. Good afternoon. I am Shin Adachi. I work as an incident responder, as Mr. Rin-san said, and I own my own business, my security consulting business, and other stakes in Silicon Valley, California, in the same city where nowadays NVIDIA is headquartered. Over the years, I have been actively contributing to the global security community. For example, I served as the education committee chair at FIRST, or Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams, the global consortium for computer security incident responders. And like today, I have had the privilege to speak at great opportunities like RSA Conference in San Francisco, again this year, just several months ago again, and ISC Square, ISACA, FIRST, EPECTEL, ITUT, and of course, HITCON. I also have contributed to globally recognized organizations such as ENISA, NIST, and FIRST, and acknowledged by them in their official publications. But this is who I am. And I would like to thank HITCON very much for having me, an incident responder, for Hackers Conference. And quick disclaimer, welcome to California. And what I'm sharing today is based on my own opinions and views, not those of any organization, customer, or employer. All intellectual property belongs to its respective owners, not me. And I have no conflicts of interest with any of the quotes, sources, references, or examples used. I don't take responsibility for the accuracy or completeness either. And last thing, finally, you don't need to take photos because HITCON organizers will share my slide with you after the conference. So just relax. So I just want to know who you are. So can you show your hands for me, please, if you don't mind? How many of you are incident responders? Oh, thank you. Oh, there are 2 people. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Any SOC operators or SOC analysts? No people. Oh, just one. Thank you. Oh, great. Red teamers or pen testers? Great. IT, I mean traditional IT, such as system admin, help desk installers or engineers. Wow, interesting. Anyone working in disaster recovery or business continuity? Wow. About auditors or compliance officers? Okay. Thank you. I see some few hands. None of the above. Okay. You scare me. Oh, you scare me, but thank you. Let me explain why I'm here and what I'm talking about today before you're disappointed. How many of you know the theme of this conference? Theme of this conference. What's the theme? Wow. What a quiet audience. Here it is. This is the theme of this conference. But 7 years ago, back in 2018, I had the honor of speaking at HITCON Pacific 2018. The theme that year was also resilience. And do you know this guy? I would like to thank IT Home for publishing an article about my talk back then, so 7 years ago, a little bit younger. I am pleasantly surprised, though. This article is still available online, believe it or not. Thank you, IT Home. And how many of you have read the message from HITCON about the conference theme? They had a pretty interesting message to explain why they put this theme. No. Okay. This year, resilience returns as a conference theme with some really thoughtful insights from the HITCON organizers. This is a whole text. I like that very much and decided to respond to those insights through my proposal, resulting in my talk today. I thank HITCON again for having me today and for sharing such timely and relevant theme with your great insights. Now, let's dive into what HITCON 2025 says. As we just saw, the conference theme this year was perimeter security is dead. Let's start from a quick overview why traditional security perimeter defense is no longer sufficient for us to be resilient. Honestly, I don't necessarily think it is dead, but it's been very insufficient for more than a decade, and here's why. Well, nothing new to you. Just a quick recap to make sure everybody is on the same page, but digital assets have expanded beyond enterprise-controlled environments to cloud or SaaS, mainly SaaS, I would say. And that brought us disintegration of physical boundaries. I mean, now we only have few digital assets on premises now. And remember, COVID shutdowns. Well, there's no COVID. There may not be no COVID shutdowns in Taiwan, but in California, everything stopped working. And shutdowns accelerated cloud dependencies for remote operations. And now we have more API-driven interdependencies. APIs are everywhere. And last but not least, this is pretty serious, but the perimeter defense appliances themselves have been targeted and exploited. Such perimeter defense appliances include firewalls and VPN appliances, big or small, from almost all vendors. We hear such incidents every day at different places. So in short, this is where we used to be, a famous castle in Japan, versus this is where we are. So no way for perimeter defense to protect ourselves, to protect everything. Now, let's take a look at key challenge and core principle of cyber resilience HITCON proposes this time. So let's go back to their statement. But what do we need to focus on to improve resilience in an enterprise environment? HITCON 2025 gives us some clear statement. And here is an extract from their message with a few edits I made, just to make it easier to see. And HITCON highlights 3 key challenges and core principles of cyber resilience. 1, adapt to emerging cyber threats, maintain operations, and withstand cyber threats, and recover quickly after an incident. There should be capabilities for these 3 key challenges in any businesses now. Especially true for critical infrastructure providers, regulated industries, government organizations, or publicly traded companies, especially those listed on major stock exchange markets like New York, London, or in Tokyo. Then, if these 3 principles are already in place in business, why do they still matter? Here's my quick response to HITCON's key challenges. In short, I agree with them. This table I made is just an example, and these challenges remain important for resilience even when organizations already have, oops, I hit the wrong button. Come on, I screwed up. Bear with me. Oops, okay. These capabilities companies have. For example, these capabilities often operate under different corporate governance structures. But to be truly resilient, especially during major incidents, it is critical that these different capabilities make them work together in an integrated and coordinated way as efficiently, swiftly, and speedy as possible. We need to consider how these 3 key challenges are managed during normal times before something goes wrong. For example, regular exercises are important to check if process works well or to find ways to improve. Another challenge is understanding emerging cyber threats each organization faces. We have to understand the emerging cyber threats before adapt to them. HITCON says about adapt to emerging cyber threats, but in order for us to adapt to them, we have to understand what they are. Threats differ depending upon the businesses, and they are changing faster than ever. If we can't adapt to the most up-to-date threats, the other two key challenges here, these 2, become much, much harder to solve, and that means we become less resilient. So in short, in summary, I think here are challenges for each of our organizations. How can we make different corporate capabilities work to respond to these 3 challenges HITCON proposes? And how can we learn what risks we have and what risks are coming? Now, let's go back to HITCON's message, the same thing. And it highlights here on the second paragraph, communication security by emphasizing its importance. And here's an extract. Again, I made a few edits to make it easier to read. But HITCON considers communication security just as important as traditional cybersecurity. I believe it's even more important now, especially when we look at today's evolving threat landscape. Let's take a look at some incidents affecting communication services. I think many people know this, but here's a recent one. Starlink stopped working globally for hours on July 24th, 2025, just a few weeks ago. And Reuters said, in Ukraine, where troops rely heavily on Starlink for battlefield communications, the outage affected combat operations as service was down across the entire front. And do you know that the KSAT attack back on 2022? How many people knows this? Oh, what a quiet audience here today. Oh. This attack happened on February 24th, 2022, the very day Russia began its invasion to Ukraine. And here's a snapshot based on this resource from NATO CCDCOE. Again, this attack happened early in the morning, very early in the morning on the day when Russia started invading Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. United States, United Kingdom, and the European Union attributed the attack to Russia, and they attacked network management systems and modems, not satellite itself. They exploited the misconfiguration of a VPN appliance to get in the network management segment. Yes, remember what I said. This is an example I talked earlier, how perimeter defense appliance is targeted and exploited. And they overwrote the key data in flash memories of the modems and the routers. And I suspect that likely because of this, over-the-air software updates didn't seem working well because Viasat, the service provider who owns KSAT, had to ship almost 30,000 new modems to their users. And thousands of customers were still flying 3 months after the attack. This was a case of deep, lasting destruction. What was the objective of this attack? Many sources believe the goal was to disrupt military command and control communications in Ukraine. However, the actual impact went far beyond that. More modems across Europe were affected than those in Ukraine, including Poland, Germany, UK, France, and Czech Republic. I mean, thousands of modems stopped in Ukraine versus tens of thousands of modems across Europe. In Germany, for example, remote monitoring and control of nearly 6,000 wind turbines stopped working. This is serious. Imagine how people can survive in a still cold winter in Germany without power. And also think about other industries, especially critical infrastructure providers had to operate without communication services and without power in the worst case. And here's another one, which widely impacted telecom providers. The first hint, Viasat comes up again. Second hint, this is the very first public report from the Wall Street Journal last September. And their follow-up article on October, reporting that AT&T and Verizon, the two biggest telecom providers in the United States, were also victims. How many people know this incident? Yes, salt typhoon. According to various reports, huge scale of attacks against major US telecoms, the AT&T, Verizon, Lumen, Comcast, Viasat, and likely others within or outside of the United States. And they even targeted the system for court-authorized lawful interception as well. Allegedly by Chinese actor called Salt Typhoon, and by exploiting vulnerabilities on Cisco iOS software with CVSS base score 10.0, full score, the worst vulnerability. And as you can see, this is another example when perimeter defense appliances were targeted and exploited. And I will come back to this Salt Typhoon case later on my presentation, so just keep it in mind. And more recently, Certefoire and ANSI in France released this report on July, so just last month, last month, on a wide range of attacks against telecommunications as well as government, media, finance, transport sectors, which are designated as critical infrastructure. And just a few weeks ago, July 28th, France Telecom Orange announced they were hit and some of their production systems were impacted. These recent incidents underscore HITCON's statement on importance of communication security. So let's move on. Let's take a look at gaps in 7 years since last time I spoke on resilience at HITCON Pacific 2018. These are some of major changes and challenges I have observed in 7 years since my last talk on resilience. Let's start with expanding scopes. As businesses rely more and more on information systems, the scope of what we need to protect keeps growing. Why? Because more business processes and transactions are moving into digital systems. And again, COVID shutdown accelerated this shift, forcing many operations online. The more flows into digital systems, the more cascading dependencies we have. For example, APIs are everywhere, including vulnerable APIs. ICS and SCADA are no longer air-gapped, and we have more external dependencies, plus more connected devices like IoT. These changes also raise new safety concerns directly involving people's lives, like battlefield front in Ukraine, as we saw, and wind turbine, 6,000 wind turbines stopped in the winter in Germany, and more. As we have, or just imagine if power stops right now in Taipei in the hot summer, your winter may not be as cold as in Germany. And this is another one I just added last night. Just yesterday, Reuters reported Norway's intelligence agency's chief blamed Russian attackers for dam sabotage in April. What happened is that the Russians somehow sneaked in their dam control systems to let water go. So they basically controlled the dam for hours. We just can't ignore emerging technologies like chatbots and so-called AI. These are changing how businesses operate and introduce new risks involving our minds and cognitions. At the same time, We now have less monitoring, less visibility, and less control because so much infrastructure have moved out. They have moved to the cloud out of our offices. Let me give you some examples of how emerging technologies are creating new threats to us or enterprise environment. We are now seeing AI-powered social engineering attacks, including voice and video deepfakes that mimic high-level figures like United States Secretary of State to deceive senior executives just last month. This level of attack simply didn't exist 7 years ago. And today, we still don't know. We still don't have mature and effective countermeasures to deal with this kind of expanded threat scope, which directly challenges our resilience. Next example. According to the report from NewsGirl's Reality Check on March, so 5 months ago, Russian actors have been actively pretty much polluting or infecting large language models, LLMs, with their false claims and propaganda to influence the outputs of AI systems. The audit found a leading chatbots repeated false narratives by Russian Pravda network about 33% of the time. And another example. A report about AI models themselves as propaganda machine from the beginning. Oh, okay. And let me go back to 7 years ago. Bear with me. Okay, this is a slide I want to show. What about the known but still unsolved issues? Challenges from the past 7 years. Actually, we have a lot of them. We haven't solved a lot. But in my view, the most significant one is still authentication. For example, many of us still rely on password-based authentication, even though more secure and mature alternatives have been available for years. The technology has improved, but adoption hasn't kept up. Why? Honestly, I think because people and organizations are still too slow or too lazy to implement them. And that hesitation weakens our resilience. Let me go back to 7 years ago. This is the exact slide I used 7 years ago for HITCON Pacific. Do you remember what happened to Reddit June 2018? Reddit released the incident report on August 1st, 2018. They revealed that a few employee accounts were compromised in June that year, even though two-factor authentication was in place. Why? They explained clearly that the SMS-based two-factor authentication was not secure enough. However, in June 2017, a year before Reddit incident, NIST had issued a warning. They had already highlighted the security risks of using PSTN, especially SMS, as a second authentication factor. Again, a year before Reddit incident. And this wasn't a surprise. This risk has already been widely discussed in the security community before this NIST warning publication. So if Reddit had paid attention to this guidance and implemented stronger measures in time, this incident could have been prevented. Now, coming back to today, And coming back to Salt Typhoon, after the Wall Street Journal reported it, CISA and the FBI released a document called Mobile Communications Best Practice Guideline on December last year. In their press release, they said, all communications between mobile devices and internet services are at risk of interception or manipulation. In other words, bad actors could intercept or manipulate our communications over the telecommunication networks. Whoops. And here's the guidance they released. In the guidance itself, especially in section 3, they discourage using SMS for second authentication factor. Why? Because as we looked earlier, bad actors could intercept these messages. So, what's the lessons? If you are still relying on SMS-based multi-factor authentication, you have been putting yourself at risk for more than 8 years ever since the warning from NIST. Thank you. Here's the conclusions. Things are not simple. So let's be prepared enough for our resilience. The scale and the scope of what we need to protect have been growing for even last 7 years, and it will keep growing. We are adding emerging technologies like AI into our operations. These technologies influence human minds and cognition. In such an environment, we need to understand in advance what we can protect and what we cannot for our resilience. Because today, again, we have less control, less visibility, less ability to monitor. That's why we need to understand ourselves in order to understand our threats. As HITCON's 3 key challenges, again, made this clear. But again, this part, they said adapt to emerging cyber threats. But in order for us to adapt to emerging cyber threats, we have to understand them first. And the other 2 challenges, relying on this, we can't achieve the other 2 without the first one. And let me repeat it again. Do exercises, keep testing for your resilience. We need to make sure HITCON's principles actually work for us before a real incident happens. Do you know what what you have not done yet and why? By doing so, what extra risks do you have because of that? That's how we prepare to survive. That's what resilience really means. I'm serious because just a few weeks ago, we saw global zero-day attacks, as also known as tool shell exploitations, testing organizations' resilience in the real world over the world. But here's the thing. Don't you think such discipline has been well known for years? I'm sure many of you are even more familiar with this than I am, but here it is. According to Sun Tzu, the legendary strategist known around the world. So let me ask, how well do we know ourselves? Not 7 years, not 700 years, more than that. And here's one more great piece of advice, something for us to reflect on as we think about and build resilience. Let's hear it.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce Lee, for helping me conclude my presentation today. And before I take your questions, let me thank Serena Huang very much. Well, a great friend of mine, she cannot make it today, but who suggested me to respond to HITCON CFP this time. And Ziva and Liu, thank you, ladies, thank you guys for helping me come here all the way from San Francisco Bay Area. Tuan, our interpreter, I truly appreciate you make every effort to convey my message to the audience with your language. I'm sorry, I cannot speak your language. And Mr. Lin, thank you very much for chairing this session and the kind introduction. And last, thank you very much, Lo Wendy. She cannot make it today, but she let me know the IT Home article about my presentation 7 years ago. And of course, every and each of you who joined me today, thank you very much. And I hope I still have some time for questions. Great, thank you. Questions?
Okay. Wait for okay. So thank you for the presentation. We have few minutes to take the QA. If somebody, please don't be shy.
Or criticize me, kick me, bump me.
Anything? Any question?
Boring. Oh, thank you.
I do my job. Okay.
So the topics covers like a failure of perimeter defense, especially we have quite a lot of VPN, firewall, CVE in the recent year. So what is your recommendation for the industry? Because it's like our first line of defense. We got safeguard our resources with VPN, but it's keep failing. Then what can we do better as a defense?
Thank you for a great question. That's a serious problem. And when you say we, mainly two major roles. I would like manufacturers to make their products as much secure as possible from the beginning. Because if you take a look at recent vulnerabilities, I would say maybe more than half of them are pretty simple or could be avoidable. That's why people keep talking about shift left. But nothing happens if people act by shift left policy or whatever that is. And as a user, because in such an environment, for example, just yesterday, the Fortinet nasty vulnerabilities, the only way we can do is respond quickly. That's the only thing. So we have to, unfortunately, users have to know pretty much always keep monitoring which vendors, which product are vulnerable, and apply patches as soon as possible. And remember, some of the vulnerabilities on the especially security appliances cannot be fixed by simply applying the patch. So users need to be educated because products vendors are not necessarily always kind enough to the users. And that's pretty much my day-to-day job and day-to-day businesses from my customers.
All right. Maybe I can take one more. All right, please.
Hi. So in the Reddit case, we have NIST providing an advisory and Reddit as an organization kind of not paying attention to it, being oblivious. Are there any other government agencies, perhaps maybe outside the USA, in which the advisories or the notifs that they push are better followed? And are there any lessons that you think I guess the organizations and or agencies in the USA can learn from?
Great question. I would say for last several years, I would say major governments, like include not only US, like Canada, UK, and Australia, and Taiwan too, they're doing quite a great job to act or release as soon as they find something critical. And again, the challenge though is the message doesn't always seem to go to the users as quickly as they hope. And honestly, that's a tough question. Everybody is looking for the answer. And I was talking just several months ago. I was talking with the pretty senior guy from CSCC from Canada. That's exactly the topic we are talking about. Because from his view, they are working so hard, and that's true. I know how hard they are working, and but the challenge was how to make the message spread out. At least those who are involved in Canada, their constituencies, and hopefully more than that. But things are not as fast as they expect. But thank you for pointing that out.
All right.
And I hope you can make some nice AI or something to make their job easier. Thank you, though, Andrew.
All right, I think it's time's up. And again, please give him another applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Adachi-san.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great pleasure to be here.